when you understand that no matter how big the scenario is, no matter how big the deal, no matter how big the relationship, any type of moment you're in, if you understand that everything comes down to a human to human interaction and you understand how to optimize your influence and your ability to speak their language in all different ways, you're going to be able to move the success needle faster for everyone. And the people that are the most influential in this world, and understand this, are the ones that move fastest through this world. However, they also bring those with them quicker and move the world with them. So influence is one of those most powerful skills you could have, especially when you know how to influence people for the best of their values first and not your own. And that's what I will leave you with this wisdom, is be more influential.
Welcome my guest, Jake Havron. Jake went from graduating with his nursing degree to then shifting into empowering people to create their strategic lives through result-driven coaching and speaking. Jake has always had a heart for serving humanity. He has been consulting solopreneurs just starting their journey to real estate teams doing $1.6 billion annually in production in various industries and leaders in between. Jake guides them with strategic ways to becoming more influential with those around them, learning how to release bottlenecks in their life and how to get more resourceful with their unique abilities. All right, I want to welcome to the podcast, Passion, Love, Pursuit, Jake Havron. Thank you so much for being on the show. We've had already a conversation and now we're pressing record, but I'm just so happy to finally meet you face to face. I feel like when you're following people online, you feel like you know them, you feel like you know their life, but then you never really connect in person. So virtually connecting with you is so great. And so thank you for being on the podcast today.
Yeah, so happy to be here. And you're right. Like, we were talking like for 20 minutes before this, and we had to make that connection. So it's so great to learn more about you and everything you're doing.
Thank you so much, Jake. So I've actually had your beautiful significant other, Emily Ford, on my podcast, which of course her episode was phenomenal. And a lot of people listened to that episode. She brought so much value, as you know, she always does. And a couple of your good friends have been on the show. So I'm just so happy to finally make this happen. And I know you're going to provide so much value. But before we go into that, of course, I want people to get to know you, what brought you into the work you do today, and the service you provide to so many today.
Absolutely. Well, people look at me today and they're like, oh, this guy's 6'6", he takes care of himself. He's fit. He must be always that way. But the truth is I wasn't. I grew up and I was the chubby white kid in Maui, Hawaii. And you want to talk about growing up in Maui, Hawaii? It was tough. I got bullied a lot. I got picked on a lot. You're not the most liked there in that sense, especially if I was, tall. And just growing up, I just had this, lack of significance. And I've always tried to fill it with a void of some sort of activity. And it was actually 7th grade. I was 5'8", 180 pounds. I was a little chubby, but I was playing a lot of sports, but I couldn't lose the weight. I didn't feel good about myself. And then one day I just had like this breaking point, and I didn't even know what this is, of course, but when you think back at it, it all makes sense. And I was like, I just want to like look good in the gym. I want to, like, if I ever have to take my shirt off or something, I want to have like abs. Like, it was just all these things back in 7th grade as, a middle schooler. And I went and did whatever I could take and whatever I could do to lose the weight. I was doing home workout videos. I was doing YouTube videos. I was had bands in my room doing exercises. I went to GNC and got all these products, and I just had this motivation and commitment to finally like get something I wanted. And I lost 40 pounds over the summer going to 8th grade. And I share the story because this was like the pivotal moment in my life, because I finally found significance in being healthy, because I came back 8th grade. No one could realize who I was. They couldn't recognize me. They're like, Jake, is that you? And so that really anchored to me. But the beautiful thing that really anchored, and once again, this came from looking back at this, I was like, people were asking me for help. They were like, hey, can you teach me how to do this? I want to lose some weight. I want to get bigger arms like you. And this was back in 8th grade. But that's when I realized that I loved helping people, especially around health at the time, but let alone just people in general. So fast forward, I got a full scholarship to play basketball and get a nursing degree because that's I wanted to go into exercise science, but my sister was becoming a nurse, but they told me it's better paying job. I was like, whatever, I just want to go be a pro basketball player. And it was my senior year of college where I was actually graduating as a nurse, and I was working in the emergency room at the time, Erica. And I had this guy that came in the stretcher, had a heart attack, all the docs around him. We get called as the nurse to go save them, of course. And I was so excited because I loved helping people. So I helped this guy, give him the right, protocol, everything. And I saw his family there, and his family was mourning. It was just this high emotional experience. And, all I knew was, hey, if I save this guy's life, he's never going to want to be back here again. Because look at it, he sees his family and they thought they lost their father or their husband, and he shouldn't have been there. It was preventable. And I saved his life, and I was like, great. I felt like accomplished. But what happened is a couple months later, I was sitting in the ER and the same exact person came in. And Erica, at that moment, it was that little bit of that aha moment where I saw that person. It couldn't click right away, but when it did, and I realized that was the same person, it almost like tore my soul apart a little bit, where I just knew that this wasn't made for me. And I didn't know. I wasn't personally developed. This was just 5 years ago. I didn't know what that felt like, but it put me off on a 2 millimeter shift off to somewhere else. And that's where I just realized I graduated as a nurse. I have a nursing degree, and I just realized that wasn't for me. So I, went my own route and chased entrepreneurship and became a personal trainer, then turned into an online trainer, and then turned into a business strategist and a speaker. And here we are today, just 5 years from now, where I had no business sense. I had no personal development, and I had still a lack of confidence even after I left that nursing. So that's where we're at today. And that's why I'm so excited to be able to just share that, we underestimate what could happen in 5 years. I'll tell you that.
And that's actually what I was going to pull out of that. So there's probably a lot of people that have questioned. I mean, I know this was a conversation. I feel like it's old news now, but so many people pivoted during COVID or the pandemic, and they were, thinking or pondering like, I don't want to do this job. Like there's something else tugging at me, this passion, a different purpose. And just out of curiosity, when you were thinking of getting out of the nursing career, how did you have this confidence to pursue something new when you, number one, dedicated your time and your schooling to nursing, but how did you have the confidence to build something that yet you haven't seen certainty in achieving success with?
That's a great question because, now I teach a lot of people about optimizing influence in sales, right? So I talk about the psychology, working with teams, companies, all that sense on why people make decisions and how to help them with that. So when I think back to where I was at that point, people have really two things that they're trying to do. They have a pull to go somewhere, right? They look for the optimism of where to go, or they're trying to run away from something, the fears, the pains, or whatnot. I didn't really have the pull to go somewhere. I didn't know where to go at that point. All I knew is that I did not want to be a nurse. And I love nurses, right? And nurses are beautiful, and they are some of the most hardworking people out there and loving people. But for me, it just wasn't my vehicle anymore, right? Like I like to describe it really quickly as, you could be the Lance Armstrong of being an athlete, but if you're put on a tricycle and you're Lance Armstrong, you're going to get beat by a mediocre athlete that's on an Olympic bike, because the vehicle is what matters. And I realized that I was just on the wrong vehicle, and that's part of the process. But at that moment, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do whatever it takes to just not go down the path of nursing. I kept pushing it off, because I graduated as a nurse. I still had to do my NCLEX exam, which was the big exam to, start going working. And I was just like, let me just go do this, take care of myself. I'm going to go do a bodybuilding competition. I love fitness. I was like, I played team sports my whole life. Let me just go do this. I had no clue where that would go, but I was just trying to fill the void. And what happened with that, Erica, is that I started to really enjoy even more fitness. And this was another pivotal moment. And this is where you can never underestimate what is happening or who's watching you. So I started my fitness journey and I started getting ready for competition. And I just had a small little Instagram page back then. It was like less than 1,000 followers, right? Once again, you shouldn't look at people where we're at today with the amount of followers, engagement, and be like, oh, they must have been always like that. Less than 1,000 followers. But I was like, maybe I should start a fitness page, just because I feel a little guilty putting all this fitness motivation on here. I don't know if everyone wants to see it, right? So I made this fitness page. And because of that, it allowed me to have the freedom to post what I want, how I want, to feel passionate about this. And because of that, this person reached out to me after a couple of months and was like, hey, Jake, I've been watching you. He was like in his 40s. He was like, I live in Nevada. I was in Maui at the time. I moved back. And he was like, do you do online training? And in that moment, I was like, I've always wanted to be an online trainer. I didn't know how to do it. I had the fitness skills and all that, but I didn't know how to like build the business. And I was like, yeah, I do online training. And so literally I go and search up how to be an online coach or get certified.
Trusting Google, right?
Yeah, trusting Google, but I go get my NASM, to go get certified with this. And I remember I had no business idea. I wrote out on Google Docs like this little like business proposal of like 12-week plans. And I literally signed this guy up for a 12-week program for $147.
Oh my goodness.
And I was ecstatic. I was on my couch and I was back at my parents' place right after college. And I was like, Mom, I made my first amount of money. Like, cause I've never worked in my life really. I was on a scholarship and I was in nursing. But I share that, Erica, because that was the catalyst. As small as it was, as quote unquote insignificant it was, that led me to not only helping that guy, which he got results and he loved it. Not only did it give me the belief that, well, I have this certification, but because of that, just to fast forward a little bit, I was about to play for the Hawaii pro basketball team, signed the contract, playing for them. It was going to be life-changing. I was like, this is my dream to play professional basketball. 2 weeks before the season, the coach dipped out. He basically left the team for whatever reason. No one knew it was even coming. The whole program imploded and I was devastated. That was my dream since I was like in third grade, was to play pro. And I was like, this was my only chance. And after a couple of days, when that door closed, once again, I had no personal development. I didn't know to look for another door and all these things that we talk about today. I just had the kind of the mindset. It was there. I was like, well, it's coming around January 1st, 2018. New Year's is coming around. We know people want their dream bodies around New Year's. I was like, maybe I should just go be a personal trainer because I have this certification that I got from that online coach from that one client. And that was day one of entrepreneurship when I became a personal trainer. And that is what set me off onto this path of entrepreneurship. I was listening to podcasts every day. I was learning how to build a business. And I am here today doing the things I'm doing, working on with clients and on stages all over the world because of that one moment right there. So that's just the power of just being able to just take it one step at a time and believe that if you have that mindset, I mean, you could do some big things.
I love that you pulled that out because I think there's such an importance in celebrating your small wins. Like those little things, I think they just stack up, right? So I think celebrating those little wins, like you said, just signing your first client, like, oh my gosh, how amazing. That's what started you on this like path to be able to have the confidence to sell somebody else and so on and so on. So I think that's important to pull out, like celebrate those small wins because they do add up over time. And it's like, it's also just celebrating your journey. It's not about the end destination always. It's very much about the journey of developing this confidence. And before we press record, we were talking about this lovely ad right behind you. No, I'm kidding. If people are watching on YouTube, it's so funny. His TV just pops on and it looks like somebody's proposing. I'm
just gonna turn my TV off. I've never had that before where the ads pop up so frequently. I'm gonna have to go get my YouTube premium on.
I love it.
No ads.
I love it. It's like Alexa. It's like, what did you say? Oh, but so talking about before we press record, we were talking about confidence and doing the thing and how much you build confidence in the process of the journey. And so I would love to hear from you, stepping into the space of something new like entrepreneurship, which can be very intimidating. How did you cultivate this confidence? What did you do? Like, what were the actions you took to continue to build that confidence muscle?
Absolutely. So confidence comes down to two areas as I describe it. So you have external confidence and internal confidence. And so let's talk about the external confidence, because I think that's a little more relatable for people. So external confidence is all about your physiology. It's about what people see. When you look at another person, like let's say, for example, think about the last time that you were in a restaurant and you're sitting down, and maybe the door was in your peripherals, but even maybe out of the peripherals. This person comes in, and have you ever had it before where you didn't hear anything, you didn't see anything, you didn't feel anything, but for some reason it caught your attention, and you looked at who that person was, and whether it was a man or a woman, you could just tell that there was like confidence, like to them, like they were standing with a good posture, they had good energy, they caught your attention. Why is that? Well, our energy fields, as I'm sure you've had this conversation multiple times, but the energy field from your heart literally goes out like 9 feet, right? So when you exude external confidence, which there's literally physiological changes you can make while you're listening to this episode right now, which I'll talk about, that confidence comes off, right? There's also internal, but the external is how your body posture is. So one of the things that I talk about right away, and I see so many people with this, is just bad posture. And it is not your fault. And maybe if you don't know this, you're not able to see it because you only see yourself from the front. And if no one's telling you from the side that your head is slightly forward, and even if your head is 1 inch forward, you're adding extra pounds onto your neck, which is probably why you've been having neck pain or back pain. So what I do is I teach this thing called the doorway drill, Erica. And the doorway drill is just a good little anchor to really make a habit on fixing your posture, because with better posture, not only are you opening up your diaphragm so you could breathe deeper, not only are you opening up your energy field so then you can actually allow for more energy to come in, but you're also showing other people subconsciously that you're confident. Because if you see someone slouched over or even slightly slouched, the subconscious mind picks that up as just a lack of confidence, a lack of motivation. They're not as interested in themselves. They don't take care of themselves. So doorway drill, what I do is I first tuck my chin in, because if we're looking at phones all day and texting, we're literally, our heads are down. So I tuck my chin to my neck. I roll my shoulders up, back, and down. And then I just kind of brace my core. Don't suck in your core like you're trying to suck in, just brace a little bit and just feel that difference. It takes you less than 1 second and a snap of a finger. And every time you walk through a doorway, you're going to do this reset. And what happens is you're going to probably go back to your old posture, but that's okay, because you got a lot of doors all around, hopefully in your house, your office. And a little pro tip for just making an even better habit is I put a bright sticky note. If you would put a bright sticky note, and you could write on it, or even just the sticky note alone will catch your attention. So then you could start to practice. And before you know it, you're going to be habitually doing it and standing that way. That's external confidence. I can assure you right now.
Add to this?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I'm like a confidence hawk. I love good posture. I'm obsessed with good posture. I'm sure you know Egoscue, which is Tony Robbins, Brian Bradley. He teaches the posture correction. So I'm obsessed with it. And so what you're speaking about is like my love language, because I think posture is one of those things that people are so unaware of, as you mentioned, and we are really struggling with these days, especially kids these days, because the cell phone, because like leaning over, because we're sitting all day. And so what you're talking about to me is one of the key things that people don't focus on, but I do believe it is that one really big pivotal factor that can show that you are confident within your own body. And so I love what you're speaking about. And I think that being somebody that's 6'6", posture is really important. Yeah. So I think that's great.
Well, exactly. And to be honest, I didn't have good posture years ago. I remember learning about this and I started to apply it. But I used to be, actually, my posture was worse because I was always the tall kid and the tall person. So I would always look down. I would feel like almost a little inferior to be taller than them. So I tried to close myself off. No joke. And so I remember finally practicing this. And I was like standing tall with broad shoulders and starting to fix this. And I remember, especially it was like at a lot of different Tony Robbins events that I was going to live, but all these other networking events, I was starting to get random compliments, like out of nowhere, people saying, God, your posture is just amazing. Like you really just You got it. And that's the people that wanted to tell me that. There's a lot of people that would probably think that, didn't tell me, but how much of a difference does that make for you, right? Because communication, just really quick, communication comes down to three areas, right? The 7% of the communication between human to human is the words we say. So right now we're saying words, we're saying dialect, right? That's only 7%. 38% is tonality. So if I talk really slow like this, the entire podcast, I would probably bore the listener right now that you're listening. And did I cut out there?
For it's okay. I don't know why sorry for anybody listening. There's the Wi-Fi's it seems like it's going in and out. I'm checking mine. It seems okay. But yeah, there's a little delay but
Okay.
we're okay.
Okay. So
Listeners,
30%,
just bear with us.
yeah.
If it keeps
Zoom problems, right? That's
exactly.
We just got to roll with the punches on that. 38% is tonality. So that's the way you speak. If I speak really fast, then I'm going to really relate with other people that speak fast. But if I realize that someone's speaking really articulated and they're really precise with their words, I would want to communicate as well, being very precise and articulated, because now I'm, matching who they are. But the thing I wanted to really drive home here, Erica, is 55% of communication is body language. So that's the unspoken word, right? That's when you're saying you should buy my product, but your body is saying don't buy it because I don't even believe in it, right? That's when you're saying you should love me, but your body is saying I don't even love myself yet, right? So if you can work on this external confidence, doing the doorway drill, standing with that proper posture, that's going to be the game changer. And someone might right now be like, well, my posture is not terrible. I don't hunch over. I'm pretty good. Let me tell you, the difference between great and extraordinary is a 2 millimeter gap. And just like how a plastic surgeon makes their millions or doesn't make anything by making 2 millimeter adjustments on people's faces, it'll make the difference of that person looking at absolutely extremely beautiful or there's something a little off. It's the same thing with body language. If your shoulders are just 2 millimeters forward, if your head's just 2 millimeters forward, if your diaphragm is just a little bit down and your chest is not fully up the way it should be, that's the difference of being great. Or like I said, you could be next level where the people are really noticing that. So I just wanted to talk about that with the external confidence.
Yeah. And I want to add to that. I heard this before, that women that are attacked, meaning, attacked by other men or whatever it may be on the streets, it's generally their target are the ones that are hunched over, that lack this confidence because, like you said, it's that nonverbal communication. And so I just traveled internationally alone, just came back. And I remember thinking about this confidence factor. I walk around with, am I breaking up to you? Sorry.
No, we're good. We're
Okay.
good.
So I walk around looking forward. I'm very mindful of my posture, and I walk on the streets as a confident woman. And I realized, and I remember thinking this because I'm walking, back to my Airbnb, late at night, and I'm seeing, all these people going out, and I'm thinking to myself like, oh, this could be unsafe. But I'm like, but I know that I'm exuding confidence in walking in the streets. Like I know where I'm going. I'm comfortable being alone. And I think that really does read off to people. And so confidence,
Absolutely.
just talking about safety, if you're like hunched over on your phone, not looking straight, you're a target. Sorry, woman, but that's actually like proven fact that if your posture is in a certain position, you could be a target. So
I've heard of that study, and it's absolutely true. It is so true. And they said that it's just the intention and like you said, the body language. But what you said was so profound is you said you are in your mind believing that you're a confident woman, right? And if we really understand, this is where it'll go into the internal side. And I have some maybe some things that might change people's paradigms on affirmations and declarations. We'll talk about that. But we have to understand that you are giving that off because first off, your belief is that you are a confident woman. When you have that belief, then it becomes your thoughts, right? Beliefs lead into thoughts. So now you have the thought, I'm a confident woman. I'm unshakably confident. I'm able to give off this great energy. All these different thoughts come from that belief. The belief is the stem. That's why they say limiting beliefs are the things that hold us back. It's because that's like the root, right? People try to fix the thoughts, but if you don't fix the root, it's going to keep bringing up those weeds. So I came into the thought. The thoughts then eventually become your emotions, right? If you keep thinking about negative things, what are the emotions you're going to experience? You're going to feel anger, depression, sadness, right? That's what comes from the thoughts. So it goes into the emotions. So now you're giving off these higher, like more, confident emotions. You're more, you have better posture. You're feeling it. And then those emotions become your experience, right? Because life is all about the state of emotion we're in. If you're a millionaire and you're making millions of dollars and you are thinking that's going to be the thing that's going to make you happy, but all you are is out of shape. Maybe you're a little depressed. Maybe you still have a lot of resentment and you live in that every day. You're not a millionaire. You're depressed, you're out of shape, and you have resentment. And because every day we live by the state of our emotions. And we think that money is going to solve those problems, but money only solves money problems, right? But if you have emotional problems, which is why this podcast is so beautiful, because you bring on some of the biggest experts in the world to talk about that, you will have a better experience of life. So that's why going back to that, emotions create your experience and experience is your reality. So from that simple belief, this is where people overthink it, Erica. Your belief of being a confident woman is what has led you to do what you're doing today because of that process of how they lead.
So true. And I love how you break that down. So wonderful, Jake. So, I said Jake. Yeah, Jake. Okay. I'm like making sure I said your name right. Oh my gosh. So that's, I think those two aspects of confidence is so key to everything in relationships and in business. And so I would love to, since we touched on communication, how does somebody really refine their communication with relationships or in business? Because I know they apply to both. Like, what would your suggestions be as far as communication goes?
Good question on that. Okay, so communication. I love this because communication actually really comes down to influence, right? Our world is here today. Our society is here today. America is here today because of influence and communication, right? We left from across the pond back before 1776 because we had people that influenced others that said, hey, you're going through a lot of pain right now. There's taxation without representation. You do not want to live this life. Did I lose you?
It's okay. You're good.
Okay. All right. There's going to be, I don't know why this is popping up here. There'll be a couple little snippets that will clean this up.
Yeah. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. So people literally left taxation without representation. They're saying there could be a promised land. And if you were one of those people that came across and eventually became, part of America as we know it today back in 1776, that was a scary, scary, scary thing, right? To go cross the world that we didn't really fully understand. But that was because of influence. And the people, our founding fathers, knew how to influence them. Everything is about influence and communication, right? So in relationships, in business, in friendships, all of that is how do you influence people? Because either you're going to influence them, hopefully for their better, or they're going to influence you. And if it's not for the better, it's not a good thing, right? You're going to either influence your kid to be able to use these proper skills and tools and strategies of influence, or they're going to have more certainty and say, I'm not going to put out the trash, or I'm not going to do this, or don't tell me what to do. And they're going to eventually influence you that they're the ones in control and they're going to have their own limiting beliefs and thoughts, right? There's always the one with the most certainty is going to win. So when we understand that influence is in every area of our life, and if you could truly master that, that's when you start to really level up in all areas. So going to relationships, when we understand that humans, if you know what their needs are, their wants, their wounds, who's in charge, the authority, and seeing like where their money capacity is, especially in business, that's when you understand where people are, you're going to be able to make more change. It's called the NWAM. It's like a little acronym, right? So you got to ask questions to really understand what their needs are, what their wounds are, their wants, their desires, these things that communication is about asking questions. So if you're in a relationship, and I gave the authority and the money part, that's more for business, but in a relationship, if you don't truly understand what their wants and desires are, and you're not asking proper questions, how are you ever going to speak their language? How are you ever going to match them for what they're speaking? Because if you're the best, English speaking person in the world, but you're speaking to someone that only speaks Spanish, Doesn't matter how good of a communicator of your own language you are, you got to understand how to communicate their language, right? So my question is that with communication, what are you asking or saying, and how are you asking these questions to better understand that person? Are you asking binary questions, which is more of just a yes or a no, or you know what, like, did you have a good day today, honey? Yes, no, that doesn't lead to anything.
Mm-mm.
But if you really get calibrated in a sense where you get very, very good at asking open-ended questions, you open up the whole ability to get more emotional understanding of who that person is, what they're going through, right? This is for people that are even in, relationships like you for a couple of years, for people that are maybe just dating, is asking open-ended questions and being curious about it and saying, how was your day today? And when they say, well, and let's just say they give you a simple answer of, it was good. Okay, well, what made it so good, right? Another open-ended question. It's like going down the layers of this. If you're in sales or you're in business of some sort of selling your service, you probably understand this. It's the same thing with relationships. Well, what made it so good? And she'll say, or he would say, I met this new person today. We got to connect, and oh, tell me more about it. Who is this person? What do they do? That type of communication by you asking questions is what's going to make you very, very successful. And it's going to also open up for a lot of deep understanding of that person. Because at the end of it, even if you talked about 20% of the time, Erica, and that person was speaking 80%, you allowed them to speak to 80%, and they will go and tell their friends. They'll go tell their colleagues. Maybe they'll go tell, if you're just dating, they'll tell their girlfriends or guy friends and say, wow, I had the most amazing conversation with someone. It's because if you could really master the quality of your questions, you're going to master the quality of your life and your relationship.
Such great advice. I love that. And actually, let's talk about this because you talk a lot about providing massive value. And also, I think also you speak heavily about being of service, right? That's one of your missions is to, serve humanity. So in talking about these relationships, asking more questions, it's basically showing that you have interest to be, to build a friendship or build a business relationship with somebody. So I think that's really huge. So what would you say to providing this massive value and why this is so critical when it comes to especially business?
Especially in business and everything we just talked about with those questions and relationship. Look, business is building relationships. Okay. Don't not think those are two separate things. Some of the most successful, biggest business people in the world, not everyone is like this, but some of the most successful, you look at it, they know how to build real relationships that last. And it's not it's not about just the transactions, but it's about that long lasting relationship, even if there's no money involved, right? So with providing tasking, example, I was just at a networking event here just a couple of days ago from recording this podcast. And, I'm meeting a lot of new people there. And when I meet these new people, number one is I make sure my external confidence is really good. I'm standing with a good posture. I have a smirk on my face. I'm saying that belief in my head is I belong here. I'm going to find ways to provide value before I go to any experience. This is another thing, this little pro tip that I do. And you can take it for a grain of salt or you can implement it and completely change your life. I wasn't even planning on saying this. Before I go to every single event, before I go through every single sales call, before I get on every single consulting call, speaking on stage, whatever it is, I always close my eyes. I do a quick prayer and I set the intentions for that. So I say the prayer and then I say a couple like declarations, and I ask like a question or two and just, Jake, just how can I find the best way to just build a relationship here? Or who can I meet here that just I could give massive value? And I set that intention. So when I go out there and I meet someone, I ask a lot of questions. I connect with them. I bring interest. But one of the ways to provide massive value is you got to understand what value is to them. And so let's just think of this one guy. This one guy runs a lot of big masterminds. Okay. I connected with him, just met him. We had a little bit of small talk because that's all we could do right away. But I just asked, I said, what's your story? Right? I don't say, what do you do? That's a little pro tip. Don't say, what do you do? Don't say, I want to pick your brain. Never say that. But we also shouldn't say, what do you do? That's also, it's kind of like a slap in the face of like, I'm going to judge you on what you do. But if you say like, what's your story? It's much more genuine. You might get more of a detailed, more in-depth answer. So he told me, he was like, I run these masterminds. I do this, I do that. And I was like, right away, I was like, what kind of masterminds? So I'm getting more and more info. And like, oh, when, like you just mentioned that you have another one coming up soon. Where's that at? Like, what's the whole setup? And so after getting that info is when I start to, in my head, while he's saying this or whoever it is, I'm starting to think who or what or where, like, can I connect him to provide value for him? It's not about what I want right now, because if I want to bring massive value, it's about what's in it for them. So while they're telling me this, I'm like, oh, you're doing like couple retreats and you're doing this. Oh, actually, you know what? I work with a lot of high level people, a lot of couples as well. I already could think of some people. Tell me more about this retreat, but I could think of some people that maybe this would be a great fit for. What does that look like in his eyes? It's massive value. It's like, oh, wow, like he's wanting to help me out, which is helping me build my business. So that right there, Erica, and we could go deeper and deeper and deeper on this. But I believe if just the listener right now was just able to, before every opportunity, before every meeting, before every interaction, maybe it's just someone you got referred to or a prospect you're about to talk to, or, you know, it's about, you're just about to go into work today and you never done this in work before, but like you just set those intentions and you excuse me, and you ask those questions internally, like, how can I just show up as my best self today? What can I do to just be able to find a way to give massive value to someone that I could least expect? Your brain will find an answer. And then from there, when you connect with people, ask those questions, open-ended questions, not just binary, right? That's how the conversation gets stale really quick. Yes. And then while they're answering that, you're actively listening and finding ways to connect dots and be a connector and follow through with that. And that's honestly how I've gotten to the point I am today, because I love helping people first before I even ask for anything.
I think that's so remarkable. And I think that's so important to share, that people don't really consider that, as a lot of people focus on themselves and how could I move forward and, you know, gain more. And I think that's the game changer. And really that's what makes you stand out from the rest in your expertise or whatever you're trying to build, is just by, you know, caring about helping the person next to you. Like, how could I add more value to this person's life? Everybody has connections of some sort. Like, even, you know, it could be this most simplest thing, but like you said, just thinking of, oh, I know a couple that might be interested in your mastermind. You know, what could I, you know, tell me more about it so I could possibly relay it to them if it's of interest, right? But I think that's huge to, like, talking about standing out among the others in your expertise. What advice would you add to that, would you say? Because if we're talking about influence, building yourself as an entrepreneur, being a keynote speaker, like, what is going to sell you in your expertise opposed to the person next to you? What would you recommend, like, that person should focus on?
Yeah, well, if I'm trying to stand out compared to other worldwide keynote speakers and business strategists like Tony Robbins and John Gordon and all these big people that are out there that have been doing this for years and years and years, decades if not, I'm already in a losing game. So what I had to realize really quick is it's not trying to stand out and show that you're better than them when I'm connecting with people, right? Because, you know, when you meet people and they say, well, what do you do? Well, I'm a podcaster. Okay, great. Well, there's tens of thousands of other podcasters, right? Like, it doesn't really stand out as much anymore. What do you do? You're a speaker. Oh, okay, great. Like, yeah, everyone could be a speaker if they wanted to. So instead, my intention, my goal is, yes, I tell them that I'm a business strategist and I'm a speaker. But right away I flip it to them. And I flip it, I'm like, but tell me more about you. Like, what do you do? Or what's your story? Right. Once again, what's your story? And I would only say, like, what do you do, if they already asked that to me, but I would never ask it first. And what happens is, when you show that interest, like we just talked about, it doesn't matter if you're just starting off in your position or whatnot, because if you could give value that's outside of your business, let's say you just started podcasting, and maybe you're not going to have an ability to interview them yet, but you know another friend that runs a big podcast or has a big connection, and you just make that connection, that relationship. That's how you also stand out, because eventually then they're like, well, let me look into more of what you're doing. Wow, you're actually a pretty good speaker. You really do have a big podcast, or I might have people for you. But I don't ever try to compare myself to these other speakers, or to say, you know, especially if I don't have all these credibilities or accolades under me yet. Instead, I just see, how can I help this person on a human level by making those introductions, by giving value. If you're thinking, well, I don't have really a network like you guys, or I don't really have this, there are things you could provide them when you listen and ask those questions. When you ask those questions and you realize they're struggling with something or they don't know how to get an answer, you could get a YouTube video for them. Maybe if you don't have it on the top of your mind, you could go search up on YouTube and say, how to overcome this business problem or something. And you find it, be like, hey, John, I know our conversation was really great, and I was thinking more about that thing you're telling me about. And I actually found this video that I think could be really helpful for you. I just hope it helps. That's giving them value. And what happens from that, Erica, and it's just so unique in the sense, and everyone's different, but that usually allows them to really take another look at you and be like, wow, this person, you know what? I could see what they're doing. Or maybe I will bring them into my company to speak, or maybe I will hire them down the road or do a podcast with them. But it's all about relationships first. It really, really is. And please, please do not overlook this. Do not think that it's not important to the full extent, because I'm only here once again today because of it. I know Erica is as well. And if you're only thinking in a transactional mindset and thinking that you have to have the accolades and benefits, just like in sales, Erica, logic does not sell. Emotions sell. The logic and the facts tell. And if you are in sales, you know that to be true. Well, why not the same thing when you're connecting with people? Meet them on their emotional side first, and then all the facts and little things about you, those are later down the road.
Yeah, I think a lot of what you're talking about is really just being like human, authentic, and building somewhat a human connection with somebody, opposed to, like you said, that a transaction. I think that's a huge switch, and that's what people really gravitate to, is that humanness. So that's what's so beautiful about that, and being invested in them as much as you are in yourself, if not more sometimes. But so the other thing I know you speak heavily on is mentorship. So I would love to hear, what is your advice for mentorship? And what would you say to somebody that feels they don't know how to invest in a mentor? What would you suggest, or what is your suggestion based on that?
So back when I was a personal trainer, and January 1st, 2018, dating myself on this, I started personal training. That was my entrepreneurship. I was an independent contractor. My mentors at the time were University on Wheels. I was listening to Andy Frisella and Ed Milet. Those were the first podcasts I've ever listened to. And I was so scared to even listen to it because I thought it was going to be like a book, and I despised books at those times. I was so burnt out from it. So I listened to it and I loved it. Right. So I had my free mentors, and I was learning about sales and marketing and how to provide massive value from like Andy Frisella, especially. And that really helped me get to a point where I maxed out my personal training business. I was training like 8 clients a day. This was amazing, making my money, doing the schedule I want. But I was like, I'm trading time for money. How do I start to like scale this? I just didn't know what I didn't know. I truthfully didn't understand how you could be an online coach at that time. I got to Lewis House, and I was invited to a Lewis House event. It was the first event I've ever been to. Once again, I had no clue what to expect. I was like, what is this? Right.
Which event was it? I'm just curious if I was there.
His Summit of Greatness 2018. And so, now I love events and I know what to expect. But at first, if you've never been to an event before, just take the dive, because if you feel those butterflies or whatnot, know that I went through that too. So I go to this event, and my buddy invited me. So we went together, and we're standing in line to get in. It was like a half-mile long line to get in. And there's these group of women that were in front of us. And so they were just talking. We just casually started talking to them. One of the women was also a nurse. She is now an online health coach. And she was telling me how she had this mentor that helped her, make the money she is, which was a lot of money. And I was like, my eyes like about popped on my head. I was like, you're making that type of money doing online coaching? I had all these like limiting beliefs come up. I was like, this is cool. But then I was like, there's no way. I don't believe it. Right. But as we talked more and more, she told me, she was like, yeah, like this is my story. She told me it, and I trusted her. But I trusted her because I felt that, right? I just met her, but I felt that. And so what happened and look, with mentors and coaches, I got coaches for free my entire life. Like I was a basketball player. I was like, why do you have to pay for this? But when I invested to become an online trainer is when I realized that, number one, is I got the results and my life completely scaled. And I was actually able to get all this information that was out there on YouTube, even though I wasn't looking for it, but I knew it was out there because afterwards I could find it. but it's all packaged up in an exact way to be able to get the results you want. And that's what value is. And that's why you have to pay for that. Right. And that's the same thing with like your program. I know you have a program for launching your podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's the same thing. Everyone can learn how to launch a podcast, right? If you wanted to go piece those things together and watch all these different YouTube videos and try your best to do it, or you could come to someone like yourself that you trust, like how I trusted her, and you could pay for this. That decreases time, it decreases effort, because you don't have to go and try to, fail 100 times to get it, because you've done that. So you're teaching that, and you get to your results quicker. And so when I realized that was the catalyst of my success, and then from there, I had more mentors, got mentors in, being able to learn how to build businesses in a different way with marketing. I have a board of advisory of people that built great relationships with. They see the belief in me. These are, like the top plastic surgeon in the world, who's a serial entrepreneur and a great friend of mine. He's on my board of advisory. So I could reach out to him and get mentorship. And he does that because he sees that in me, right? Mentorship and coaching is how you compress decades into days. It's how you skip the gap of the trenches of mud that you would go through to get to your promised land, where you could still get to the promised land by yourself, but you probably won't get there as fast or get as far, because you're not taking the time and compressing it, which is what mentors or coaches do. So that was my personal experience. I wanted to share that, because that was from a point where when I had to make that investment, Erica, I wasn't making great money back then. I was making decent money. It was cool, but it was a significant investment, which also pulled me into knowing that if it was a significant investment, all my time and energy is going to this because it mattered. If I would have got that program for free, which is what my belief was like, well, just give it to me for free. And when I do it, then I'll pay you. I would have never done it. Right. And that's just the truth of it all. So I 100% agree in mentorship. I believe that people out there do have an ability to help. And, but also it's good to know the person or have a referral word of mouth, because everyone can say they do mentorship or a program. You gotta trust what they do and see what they do, and then just take the leap of faith and make it happen. And that's what I did.
That's great. And I think you have to be kind of discerning with what you invest in. Like if you know, like you want to focus on online courses, you have to be kind of discerning what to invest in, because you don't want to just mindlessly spend money, because it will add up. So you obviously want to shorten your curve, but you want to invest in the right things. Like I think obviously the best thing to invest in is your personal development. That pays dividends over time and every day. So talking about that, because I know you're huge on personal development, what do you feel is something that are your must-dos every day that lead you to success in your mind, body, and spirit?
It's so good. So really quick on that investment and also with the personal development, I want to bring this up really clear, because this might really resonate with, you're listening right now. This might really resonate with you. Is there's a difference between compliment and substitution. And the difference is what happens. And I see this, and it's very, very common now, because personal development is everywhere. And it's so easy to go into this mastermind and this program and this event and this event. What you're doing is you're substituting the actual work or the things that you could be doing to get done, where you go to this event and you say, because I went to this event, I feel like I'm going to be more successful, but you're not allowing that to complement the things to move you forward. If majority of your time is in absorbing this information, but you're allowing that to be the substitution, then that's not going to get you far. And there's always those people that are just on this cycle. It's the hamster wheel. The reason why people do that is because you get that instant hit of dopamine when you substitute it for these different things, which makes you feel good. But the long-term results of complementing it is a delayed gratification. That's why it's harder. And that's why not many people, go far. Or you talk to those people that have been to every single event and you see where they're living and how they're living. And it's the same thing, even if they didn't go to those events. So if that's something that is resonating, if you're listening right now, let that be something where it's like, don't feel bad if you've been doing that. Don't feel like, oh gosh, I messed up. No. Because now you have all this potential power with you, but now you have to actually let it complement and get the results done. So then you can get to your dream outcome. But if you just want to go be an event chaser and have fun and socialize, then that's totally cool. But I think if you're listening to this podcast, I think you want something out of this, right? Yeah. So my routine on one thing that stands out is it's something that you've probably heard multiple times. And before I say it, and before you tune this out and say, oh, I've heard that before, try to listen to this a little differently. Try to have a different perspective on this, because this will be the game changer for you. If so, whether you're doing it every day, frequently, or inconsistently, is my morning routine. I look at the morning and night routines as like the bookends of your life. Okay. Your life is the books stacked up, and you have all these beautiful chapters. You have a lot of blank pages you're still writing. It's a beautiful, beautiful life. But the thing is if you do not have bookends, or any stable bookends, people might have bookends and might be doing a morning and night routine, but it's very flimsy, right? Inconsistent. It's made out of paper. Maybe it's made out of cardboard, right? If anything comes by, a rat scurries across, a gust of wind, someone bumps it on accident, what happens to those books if there's no stability? Anything comes by, they will fall over. There will be chaos, right? There is always going to be chaos happening in this world. But if you have stability, Erica, and you have a solid morning and night routine, I look at it as like strong, stable steel bookends that are coming in tight, compressing those books. So even when the chaos still happens, which is someone coming in and saying, something that's snarky on social media, or, business has been on a plateau, or some fire happened in the business or the relationship, that's going to happen. But just like how someone will bump it or the wind comes by, they won't be shaken. And that's what I see morning and night routines are, is that if you could set your morning routine, this is the one, night routine we'll talk about another time, but morning routine, if you could set it up where your mind and body and spirit, like how you just said, is fully aligned, what does that look like? Well, our greatest mentor, Tony Robbins, he has a priming routine. If you type in on YouTube, I do this every morning still. I go between him and a Joe Dispenza meditation. They're both like 15 minutes. They're not like an hour, right? I'm not that type of person yet. But if you don't have 15 minutes or 10 minutes to do this, then you really don't have your own life, and someone else is controlling your life. Because if you're going on social media before you take care of yourself, all the people you're following is controlling you. If you go to your emails before you go to your own declarations and your own journaling, then people and businesses and your boss or your business partners, they're owning you, right? You have the ability to control your life, and it starts with the morning routine. So I do the Tony Robbins priming in the morning. I set the intentions with my mindset. I do literally incantations every single day and declarations every single day to put my focus on where I want to go. I still have negative things happening to me. I still have negative thoughts and disempowering thoughts, but I have to set the standard every day, Erica, because I never know who I'm going to meet that day. I never know what opportunity is going to come that day. I never know what position I'll be in that I'll have to step up for this absolute certainty. And if I'm slipping up in my morning routine and I miss out on that, that's going to be a big, big regret I have. And so what I do is I do the morning routine with Tony Robbins, the priming routine. And afterwards, I have a little mini trampoline, and that helps get my, I great thing. Go on Amazon, put in the show notes or whatever, Erica, but let people get this mini trampoline. I couldn't even remember my life before a trampoline. No joke. I don't say that just to be funny. Like seriously, like I remember at first I was like, oh, this is such a hassle to do this. Now it's like, if I don't do this, I feel terrible. Right. But what I do is I jump on the trampoline and then I do these declarations. And I just want to tie this back to earlier where we were talking about external and internal confidence. Internal confidence is the words that are going through your head, whether you're saying them consciously or subconsciously. And what I've found is we've heard about these things called affirmations, and we all know what they are, right? What I've found is affirmations like I am happy, I am grateful, I am loved. Affirmations are really only powerful if you currently believe them. And what I've found is that if you don't believe the affirmations at that time, let's say you are happy, I'm happy, or I'm happy to live this life, but you just lost your job, or you don't know where the money's coming from, or you're going through a terrible divorce or a toxic relationship, and you're trying to say that, you know what starts to happen? I'm sure people could resonate with this because it happened to me, is you have that voice in the back of your head that says, stop lying to yourself. No, you're not. Like literally, I get that. And I started to realize, I was like, this doesn't feel right. Like I feel like I'm lying to myself. And so instead, I started to learn about what declarations are and how declarations are the antidote to this problem, because a declaration is changing it from saying, I am happy today, or I am excited for today, when you know that today feels like crap and you feel so out of it and you feel like you want to go back to bed. Instead, you say, I choose to be happy today. I
Ooh, I love that.
choose to be excited no matter what happens. Because the difference of this, and words carry power, is when you say, I choose, your subconscious mind, that little voice in the back of your head, silences, because it even agrees that you have the ability to choose to be happy, even though you're in so much pain right now. If you said, I am happy, but you're not feeling it, that's the conflict. But when you say I choose, you always have the decision and the choice to make it, to make that. You have the decision to be able to change that. So when you're feeling like terrible, or you have no money in your bank account, you can say, I choose to accept a massive amounts of abundance, or I choose to experience wealth every single day, or find new ways to have opportunity. I choose to love in absolute abundance, and to always find ways to deliver to other people. I choose. And that will be the shift for a lot of people. And that was the shift for me. So every day afterwards, I say, I choose to be the man that I've been called to be. I choose to step up in every single way. I choose to have a multi-million-dollar mindset, right? That was my thing, is, for me saying I am a multi-million, I have a multi-million-dollar mindset. I currently feel like I don't. So I felt like I was lying to myself. But the moment I said, I choose to have a multi-million-dollar mindset, boom, it started to resonate with me. And that's how you build internal confidence. So what I would recommend is someone right now, just write down 20 declarations, starting with I choose. Write them down, because that's how I started. I wrote them down. I literally hold them on a book, and I'd read them out loud every single day until they literally were ingrained in my nervous system. And that's why now I could just say them. And then I also let new ones flow in. So when I say one and then something else comes in, I just let that one else that come in, and I sit there for 2 minutes, and I just get very invigorated. And that right there, Erica, is what builds internal confidence. That is when people say all these things on the outside to you, you don't get shaken, because the external circumstances don't determine how your internal circumstances are.
So phenomenal. I love it. I love everything you just said. Such wisdom. So great. And I love that. The power, that's the thing that, of course, if anybody's listening to this, you have the power of choice. And choice is the most powerful thing, because you get to choose your reality, and you get to choose a different direction if you choose to. Like, it's
Yes.
all the power of choice. So I love that you say that, declaring that's beautiful. Well spoken. I love it. Everything you shared today, true wisdom. And my goodness, I mean, so much goodness. I don't even know what to name this episode, because there's so much goodness in this episode. So, Jake, okay, let's just wrap this up. So, most importantly, where can people find you, follow you, learn more about you, work with you, whatever it may be?
Yeah, so I'm on social media all over. My main one is Instagram. So, but it's at Jake Havron. So if you're on other ones though, it's Jake Havron as well. But yeah, connect with me on social media. That's how Erica and I connected, right? It's a great way to provide value to each other. And if you were listening to this episode and something did stick out, like, don't put it aside to just let that be potential knowledge. Like, one of the ways to solidify it, and I love really calling this action out of people because it makes a difference, is send me a message and send me a message saying what stood out. I'd love to personally meet you in that sense. And I respond to every message on that, but I also would love to share that with Erica. And, as a podcaster with Erica and what she's been doing this for years, by the way, Erica, like, this podcast became the way it was because of your quality of questions.
Thank you.
Because of you actively listening and being able to extract and go deeper. These questions aren't planned. Like, if you don't know that or not, like these are just natural, but because she's able to listen and be so active, Erica, like, we had this incredible experience. And I really hope that allowed for someone's life to be shifted today. So I just want to acknowledge you on that, but I know you also like hearing people's responses. So send me a message on Instagram. If you want more info about what I do with consulting or speaking, working with teams, all that, it's on my website, jakehavron.com.
Amazing. Thank you for that compliment too. I deeply appreciate it. So, of course, to close off this podcast, I ask the last question to every single guest. So, if you were to share a piece of wisdom, a life lesson that you have learned through your journey, and that you feel anybody needs to hear right now, what would that piece of wisdom be?
Ooh, most powerful question of this entire podcast. The wisdom I would leave is, when you understand that no matter how big the scenario is, no matter how big the deal, no matter how big the relationship, any type of moment you're in, if you understand that everything comes down to a human to human interaction, and you understand how to optimize your influence and your ability to speak their language in all different ways, you're going to be able to move the success needle faster for everyone. And the people that are the most influential in this world, and understand this, are the ones that move fastest through this world. However, they also bring those with them quicker and move the world with them. So influence is one of those most powerful skills you could have, especially when you know how to influence people for the best of their values first and not your own. And that's what I will leave you with this wisdom, is be more influential.
Amazing. Mic drop. All right. So we did it. Oh my gosh. Jake, I just want to thank you so much for your time. You have spent a good amount of time with us, and I know it was a little choppy experience, and I just really thank you for so much value provided. I mean, honestly, and you are so well spoken. You are so beyond your years. And I recognize such greatness in you and such heart, humility, humbleness. You know, you are obviously willing on learning along the way and improving in every which way you can. And I really respect and appreciate that of you. And you're on quite the path. And I see absolute like stardom for you. It's going to be freaking amazing. So
I received
congrats on
that.
everything you are pursuing. And of course, any way I can support you, I'm here. It's amazing. Thank you for everything.
I received that. I thank you for that. And what we just did today is the way that you could support me, is allowing me to just share this wisdom, this truth to the listeners here, that I hope you don't just let this sit by. Apply this, know that anything's possible. And just like how I was a nurse 5 years ago and just wasn't on my right path, I'm doing things I couldn't even imagine because I applied these things that I've learned like today.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Jake, for your everything today.